Okay, so I have the volume up, right, so we can get started. And I have a couple of questions to start off with that you guys just put up here a few minutes ago, so we can hit the ground running. First off, I want to warn you, though, that there are spoilers in this Q&A. We're not going to... sorry. There's a delay, so it just came up here. I got distracted for a second. All right, so anyway, there are spoilers in this Q&A. Because we're talking about the movie that we just watched together. I had so much fun with you guys. And then also, let's try and keep it Wonder Woman related. You can ask me some DCEU questions and certainly about other films, but let's try and have it relate to Wonder Woman in some way because this is a Wonder Woman Q&A. All right, so the first question that I pulled was from Pris Stratton Pham. And Pris Stratton Pham asked, Grace, do you think that the gods are truly dead? No. No way. There's no way you would kill off so many people from her rogues gallery. It just makes absolutely no sense. For instance, I feel like you have to have Hades around in the underworld so that we can bring back Steve Trevor and Antiope. I know I saw some of you had said, well, no, Steve Trevor should definitely be dead, and Chris Pine can come back as his grandson or something like that. I don't like that idea, and also it's just too Captain America-y, and having him come back through the underworld, as I discussed at length in my ideas for Wonder Woman 2 video, is distinctly Wonder Woman. So I think that's very important to keep it that way. So I think the gods are just too good for Wonder Woman. They're unique to Wonder Woman, and it would be ridiculous to get rid of them. I think that's just more lies from Hippolyta, quite frankly, or wishful thinking if we want to give her the benefit of the doubt. Then the other question I pulled in advance was from Bone Studios 15. And Bone Studios 15 says, Grace, what do you think Warner Brothers, how do you think Warner Brothers will use Wonder Woman as a guide for their next female lead comic book films? Or will they at all? So yes, there are a lot of female characters coming up in the DCEU, and in many ways this is becoming their specialty. Like nobody does female characters or superhero characters as well as the DCEU. So Harley Quinn, of course, was incredibly successful, and she's coming up again in Suicide Squad 2. Gotham City Sirens is apparently still on. Then you have Mira going to be in Justice League, and of course in the upcoming Aquaman movie. And then supposedly there's a Batgirl movie coming up. Now, as far as a guide goes, as a Wonder Woman being a movie guide, I think that the thing that everybody should take from this film, and beyond even the DCEU, is that Wonder Woman was treated as a character first and a female character second. I think that's really important. And again, as I said, I hope that everybody pays attention to that. But the other thing that I hope is specific for the DCEU is that they remember to have variety. I would hate for all female characters to suddenly be like Wonder Woman, to suddenly be so compassionate and have, a soft yet hard edge. Wonder Woman should be a very specific character and have a very specific personality, and other female characters should feel like different characters. Just like when you have male characters, they're all very unique in their personas as well. So that's what I would hope going forward. Again, a character first. I don't even think being a female character should too much come on the board, although I think, for instance, the Disney Princess application was really smart and is obviously something you would only do for a female character, although Disney Princes are pretty unique as well, but then also variety. All right, so let me pull another question. I'm glad they're coming so quickly. That's wonderful. Okay, let's see here. So Edric says, what additional powers would you like to see Diana use in the Justice League? Well, I just would really like to see her let loose and to really become more of the little godling that we all know that she is. I want to see her use the lightning powers more. I want to see her become a smarter fighter. I think her naivete, while endearing, she needs to move past that at some point. So I would like to see her use her head more and also her powers more. I want to see flight. And lightning, I guess, in particular. Hades could, seem to have like some kind of form of telekinesis. I don't know if Wonder Woman will ever get that ability. That just, we don't want her to go into Mary Sue territory where she can do everything. But so I guess, lightning because of the Zeus connection and the ability to fly, I guess, is what I would like to see. I'll answer this because it's in front of me. Reese Williams says, who would you like to see play Batgirl in the DCEU? I'd love to see Emma Stone. I want to see an actress who doesn't bring baggage with her, just like Gal Gadot became Wonder Woman, and I think in many ways Margot Robbie became Harley Quinn. I feel like someone like Emma Stone or Anna Kendrick they'd be relying too much on being Emma Stone and Anna Kendrick and bringing that baggage to Batgirl instead of having Batgirl be her own character, and that's very important to me. All right, let's see here. This is an interesting question. This is from No Diggity. And No Diggity says, do you consider Wonder Woman to be a movie with a lot of conservative values? I think that's really interesting. I think Wonder Woman is right down the middle of the road, and that's why it was so popular. I know some people, there's always going to be some people who feel it goes too far in one direction and too far in another, liberal or conservative. But I think that Diana, I think that there's a wholesomeness to her story, which I think reads conservative, but she has a love for everyone. While I was watching it again with you just now, I was looking at the ragtag group that she had with her, and them talking about, wanting to be an actor, but I'm unfortunately brown, so I can't be an actor, in that era. And I was wondering, considering the LGBT fan base that she has, if in another movie you would add, someone like that to her group. I think that it's very important to underscore that Wonder Woman fights for those who cannot fight for themselves. And that is, I think, it shouldn't be a liberal or conservative quality, but I think it's often associated with liberals, and whether or not you view that as a negative or positive quality is how you view liberalism. So I don't say it's a movie with conservative values. I would say it's very middle of the road values, which I think is nice. Let's see here. What else? Sorry. Okay, hold on. Okay. Dun, dun, dun. Oh, Connor Thompson. What villain would you like to see in Wonder Woman 2? I'm not sure. I think Wonder Woman villains are tough. Wonder Woman villains are a little bit more fantastical than the other, the Superman and Batman villains. Well, how could you get more theatrical than Batman villains? I guess Wonder Woman villains seem like they'd have a hard time crossing over the rest of the DCEU, so to speak. But what I really want to see for Wonder Woman 2, as I've discussed with you before, is I really want to see Barbara Ann Minerva, aka Dr. Barbara Ann Minerva, who becomes the Cheetah, show up. I don't need her to necessarily turn into the Cheetah in the second movie, but as we've discussed, in the comic, in particular Rebirth, they're friends in the beginning. And now that Wonder Woman works in a museum, it's a perfect way for her to meet Dr. Barbara Ann Minerva, who really is an Indiana Jones figure who goes digging for artifacts and doesn't break them like the Enchantress in Suicide Squad. Although she does end up getting transformed by one as well. So in the DCEU, being an archaeologist is a very dangerous profession. That never happened to Indy, although I do believe he was possessed in Temple of Doom, right? That's funny when you come to think of it. But I want to see Dr. Barbara Ann Minerva show up, and I want her and Diana to be friends first, because if you read the Rebirth Wonder Woman titles by Greg Rucka, and I highly recommend that you do, that context of being friends first and how Wonder Woman feels to some degree she let Barbara down by having, I don't want to give it away, but, she's partially responsible for Barbara becoming cursed and becoming the Cheetah. That's a wonderful context to their fights. So that's what I would like to see. I'd like to at least see the setup for the Cheetah. Okay. Let me get you another question here. Okay. This is a good one. This is from Betty Georgieva. And Betty says, Grace, do you think the movie had too much slow motion at times? It felt unnecessary. Yes, I think there had a lot of slow motion. I think the idea is that Wonder Woman moves so quickly. How would you be able to see her amazing fight moves? Like if you just were to let Wonder Woman move in real time, the fight would be over before it started. And also, of course, Zack Snyder was very heavily involved with this film creatively, and he's a huge slow motion fan. And I think some slow motion shots were really beautiful. I think that it was used to pump up the action when there wasn't a lot of it there, because Patty Jenkins is just getting her action legs. She's never directed a movie like this before. I'm hoping, like with Bryan Singer from X-Men to X2, she now will learn how to do this and be able to be a little bit more sure on her footing action-wise going into the sequel. And I would love to see I would love to have slow motion occasionally, and you see a ton of it coming up in Justice League as well. Although there you have the Flash, so you have to slow things down, or you certainly wouldn't see anything. If you've ever seen I think it's called like Girl Fight or something. I can't believe I forgot the name off the top of my head, but there's I think it might be, actually it's called Cage Match or something like that. Grudge Match, that's the name of the episode. In Justice League, the animated series, it's called Grudge Match, and it's about all the female characters. It's Supergirl paid homage to it recently by doing their own version of it in the live action CW series. But what happens is that this roulette captures all these female Justice League members and has them fight each other in the ring. And then one of the best moments of the episode is when Wonder Woman shows up and they're like, oh no. And Wonder Woman moves so quickly and it's just such a force, like a powerful force that you just can't hope to combat. You know, all the women end up having to work together to even slow her down. I would love to see that, you know, basically in real time in an upcoming movie. So yeah, I think it relied on the slow motion a little bit too much, and I think the lack of action sequences hurt it internationally. So hopefully that'll change. And to be fair, I think Spider-Man Homecoming suffered a little bit from the same problem. Both movies are a little light on action. All right, hold on. Let me just get another question here. Okay, let's see here. Christopher McLean, Grace, do you think Wonder Woman can become a classic and stand the test of time? That's a really good question. I think it will become a classic, just like the first Superman is a classic. I think that it doesn't have quite a lot of action. I think at certain points, as I said, some of it, when you see it like a couple of, this was my third time viewing it, some of the acting seems a little clunky in just a little bit of places. And so I think that it's gonna be dated. You know, I mean, although I think that happens to some degree to all movies a little bit, but I think Wonder Woman will be no different. So I think that eventually a film will come along and surpass it. But I think that where Wonder Woman will be important is it's just like the very first Superman film, which interestingly enough, of course, we all know it's modeled after extensively, but that it'll be the one who really made a difference. Just like Superman convinced everyone, you know, a man can fly and made, you know, was the first one that made superhero movies, you know, mainstream. I think that Wonder Woman will be considered a real, an important point in film history and in pop culture history, where a female superhero was taken seriously and accepted and you know, was just a great hero and really, you know, wasn't like a feminist beacon, right? I mean, some people are using it that way maybe, but that's not what I think this film was about. And I think that's a very, very important turning point. And also no, you know, sexploitation of the character. When I was watching and I said, you know, actually Wonder Woman has no cleavage, you know, I mean, she's not dressed to look sexy. She's dressed to look more beautiful and heroic and you know, very much like a hero from a fairy tale, right? And I think that was another really important choice. So all of these things, hopefully, you know, maybe, and also not to undercut the importance of Ripley and Sarah Connor, I think this is another step forward with those female characters as well. All right, let's catch up here. I'm trying to make sure you guys are asking these great questions very quickly. Okay. Days Cutter says, do you think that Wonder Woman 2 will be set in present day or still somewhere in the past? They've been talking a lot about setting it somewhere in the past still, talk of the Cold War. I think that's a horrible idea. I mean, I don't want to keep going back in time. Someone asked me about this and I said, what about a Wonder Woman TV series if you want to explore her at different time periods? Go do that, like an animated series maybe. That could be fun. But I think with the movies, especially since we'll now have two of her in current day, Batman v Superman and now Justice League, I don't need to keep going back in time. I think that's going to get old really fast. I want to see her in current day. And I also think that with the announcement that Captain Marvel is going to be a period piece in the 90s, very close to the Cold War, I think you certainly can't do it. So I think that hopefully, even if that's what they were considering doing, I hope that Captain Marvel, not only because I'm excited about that potentially setting up Secret Invasion in the MCU, but I hope that's killed any chance of this other thing having the same problem. All right, let's see here. Okay. Let's see, next question. Oh, I like this one. Jonathan Chow. Do you think that Wonder Woman 2 will showcase the Amazons Cassie, Donna, or Artemis? So basically we're talking about other Wonder Woman, you know, just like Batman has Robin and Nightwing and Batgirl. Throughout the comic books, Wonder Woman has had her supporting characters. You know, Cassie Sandsmark, you know, Wonder Girl, Donna Troy, also kind of like Wonder Girl to some degree. Artemis, you know, she's an archer. And I believe Artemis, if I remember correctly, donned the Wonder Woman armor for a while there. I I don't know. None of those characters are that popular. I would have liked to have seen a bigger spotlight in some of the other Amazons. They seemed really compelling, and I liked some of the casting choices they made, you know? Like some were supermodels, but some were professional athletes, and so I would have liked to have seen a little bit more from them. I don't know if that really messes up the specialness of Wonder Woman, though, that she's the only one, right? You know, it's like, I have a problem every time other Kryptonians show up, to be perfectly honest with you. I'm not a fan of that either. I'm like especially when, like, you know, when sometimes it's just Supergirl and she was supposed to protect Kal-El, you're like, okay, that's all right. But when they have like these storylines and they're like, here's a whole bunch of Kryptonians, you know, they're all flying over the city, you're just like, now I'm just basically on Krypton. I'm not a fan of it. I like the last survivor aspect to the Superman story, and I think to the Wonder Woman story. So I don't know if I would ever bring Cassie, Dawn, or Artemis in. I mean, I could see it maybe happening, but I think that would be, I hope they can resist that urge as well. I would focus on, you know, if I wanted Wonder Woman to have a friend, I really like it to be Dr. Barbara Ann Minerva before she becomes an enemy. And also Etta Candy's there, and there's Steve Trevor. We don't need that other stuff. All right, let's see here. Hold on. Okay. So Adam Needham says, which other heroine do you want to see in the DCEU? That's a good question. I was thinking Hawkgirl because I enjoyed her so much on the animated series for Justice League. But, you know, when I was getting ready, because I was thinking of the question about, you know, using this as a guide for other characters, and I was doing my notes, you know, for that first question, I was like, you know what, Hawkgirl and her, like, you know, extremism is a little bit too much like Antiope, you know, played by Robin Wright. And I want to explore more with Robin Wright. I don't, you know, and also, I don't need Hawkgirl being like the, oh, I'm angry all the time version of Wonder Woman, right? I don't need that. Like, what would Wonder Woman be like without the compassion? Hawkgirl, I don't want that. So I would maybe go, I'm excited to see what happens with Mira, Batgirl maybe. I think it would be great to bring Vixen in. They're going to have to get rid of her on the CW following standard DC and DC TV protocol. But I think Vixen would maybe be a really interesting choice. Zatanna, I would think she could be really cool, especially since they're still planning to do Justice League Dark. Those are some characters I'd be interested in seeing. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? Oh, someone said Starfire, Malaysian Deadpool. Nice question. I mean, nice name there, Malaysian Deadpool. I would like to see Starfire. Starfire would be really cool. Diego Zia said, my hypothesis is that you want Emily Blunt as Cheetah. Yes, I did mention her in my casting video for Wonder Woman 2. I think she'd be great. Okay. Let me see here. Okay, Sufyan27. Sufyan27 says, should Captain Marvel try to copy Wonder Woman or do its own thing? Definitely do its own thing. I think that, you know, Wonder Woman is this, you know, classic soldier, you know, a hero, comes from a different era. Captain Marvel, interestingly enough, is a lot like Steve Rogers, and that she's very much a part of the military. She's very much part of that hierarchy, which I think has been, well, it's interesting. It's been, you know, Steve Rogers has become quite the maverick, you know, and he doesn't follow orders anymore, which I think has been an interesting evolution of that character in the MCU as opposed to the comics. But I think that with Captain Marvel, maybe it would be interesting to see her really be like hardcore military, you know, and like the chain of command, embrace it, and, you know, maybe be a little bit more like Nick Fury, right? Like a no-nonsense, you know, like the Army's version of a bureaucrat to some degree. But like, I know bureaucrat is a negative word, but I hope you see what I'm saying. If you read the recent Captain Marvel comic where she was in charge of Space Station, that actually started off with some of the writers from the Agent Carter TV series. I haven't been able to read it ever since it crossed over with Secret Empire because I thought it became pretty bad. That whole thing is a convoluted mess. But I really like that version of Captain Marvel there. Really like a no-nonsense, just trying to do her job type of character. And I would like to see that very much. You know, Wonder Woman is the half-daughter of Zeus. She's the god killer. She's the savior of her people. You know, she's a special individual. And I think it would be great that just like Peter Parker represents the every man, I think in many ways Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers, should be the every woman. So I would like to see that. Okay, let's see. We've got about 10 more minutes here. Oh, I like this Batman Giant. Grace, what do you think of the invisible jet for Wonder Woman 2? I don't want it. I don't like the invisible jet. I think it's too silly. I'm not a fan of it. I don't want it at all. I think I'm not a big fan of the invisible jet. I think it's too silly. And Wonder Woman has a big history of that in her past, and they have to be really careful to avoid that. Oh, I like this. Geeky Pants. Do you like Wonder Woman with Steve, Batman, Superman, or no one? Oh, that's great. I like her with Steve Trevor, especially now. I've always had a problem with Steve Trevor. I didn't think they developed the character particularly well, although I did like in the New 52 when they put him working with Amanda Waller, and he seemed to have a little bit more going on, a little bit more being a character himself that could stand on his own to some degree. I liked that. I didn't like that he was all upset all the time about being dumped by Wonder Woman, like act professional Steve Trevor, but I thought it was good. But now I think he's just a perfect character. And I love playing up the spy angle, that he's the spy. They've brought him into the comics more since the popularity of this movie and Chris Pine's portrayal of the character. But he's such a damsel in distress in the comics, it's a little disappointing. Particularly, Greg Rucka, I think, is guilty of this a little bit too, to be fair. Even though I think Greg Rucka is the ideal Wonder Woman writer, even he hasn't done a good job with Steve Trevor. But it's just become horrible ever since Greg Rucka left, the way Steve Trevor is treated. He's literally driving around after Diana on a motorcycle being like, I made you dinner. So this version of Steve Trevor in the movie, probably by Chris Pine, is who I like the best. I don't like her with Superman. She seems like Superman's sister to me. I just don't like that. I don't see any reason for them to be together. I've never seen a spark between the two of them. I have always liked Lois Lane being a little bit jealous of Wonder Woman. I thought that was always interesting, but I don't want to see them together. As for Batman, I kind of like them together. I don't know. I prefer Batman with Catwoman, although that's really played out at this point. But I think Steve and Diana are the ideal couple. I think they represent the ideal couple. Let's see here. Oh, this is a good one. Jacob Hamilton. Do you think that Patty Jenkins will be considered on par with Christopher Nolan, as both made extremely appreciated origin films? No, not quite. I think Patty Jenkins has to prove herself. Christopher Nolan has made a couple of films now that people like a lot. And I think that Patty Jenkins doesn't have quite the same visual mastery that Christopher Nolan did. Christopher Nolan has like an assuredness about his camera work that's really impressive. Although, of course, he had a practice run. He had Batman Begins, which I actually didn't like particularly. But so I think he got a lot better for The Dark Knight. So I think that Patty Jenkins could get there. She's a very different filmmaker. Patty Jenkins is like, a blockbuster filmmaker. She's more like a Spielberg, or a J.J. Abrams, who of course wants himself to be a Spielberg. Christopher Nolan's very cerebral, and that's something that's a problem for him in other ways because he has a hard time making anyone care about his characters. It's up to the actor. Everything Heath Ledger accomplished was because of Heath Ledger, I think, to some degree. So I don't think that Patty Jenkins will ever be like as another Christopher Nolan. I just don't see it. I just don't see that happening. I think she has to prove herself. I don't think she's even cemented quite just yet. Okay, let's see here. Oh, I like this. Harley Quinn. Do you think we'd ever see Harley and Wonder Woman on screen together? Do you think that may be a Justice League versus Suicide Squad movie? As I said when I reviewed the first few issues of Justice League versus Suicide Squad, it totally seemed like something that Warner Brothers said, make this comic so we can make this movie. Although, they address the lack of balance between the power sets in the comic. But Killer Frost on the Suicide Squad helps balance things out a lot. So I'm interested to see if they do indeed introduce her in Suicide Squad 2, as they said. I don't know if you'll ever see a Justice League versus Suicide Squad movie. It seems a little bit like old DCEU and not the better, more controlled, responsible DCEU they're moving towards. But I would love to see a Wonder Woman, and I'd love to see them on screen together at some point. I would probably give her a cameo maybe in Gotham City Sirens, having them fight her in one sequence. I think that would be interesting. I think it would be too good to resist, quite frankly. You don't want to overexpose Wonder Woman though, so they have to be careful. Well, let's see here. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, this is good. Rondell Moore. Which categories do you think Wonder Woman can qualify for in the Oscar race? Definitely Best Director. I think there's a very strong chance of that. I don't see Gal Gadot being nominated. Maybe at the, I'm sure she'll be nominated like for MTV and stuff like that. Maybe at the Golden Globes. But for the Oscars, I don't see it. I say Director and maybe Picture. Because the picture category can be so big. A lot of times they have pictures who are nominated just symbolically these days in the Oscars because they can go up to 10. So I see a Best Picture nomination, which it has no chance of winning. And then I see a Best Director nomination, which maybe it could win. So that's what I see coming down for it. Let's see here. Let's see here. Okay, TF, Flashpoint Wonder Woman, yay or nay? When they do a Flashpoint movie, I know a lot of people feel that Flashpoint is going to be a way to recast Ben Affleck as Batman. No. The whole point of an alternate universe is that while different things have happened to the characters, they still look the same. Just the circumstances in their life have changed. It's like movies that do this, like the Gwyneth Paltrow movie, Sliding Doors. That's the first one that comes to mind. What if she'd missed this train, and what if she had caught it, how that affects her life. It's both versions are still played by Gwyneth Paltrow. So in Flashpoint, I'm fine with them having all the characters, but they can't have a different actor play them. It has to be Gal Gadot just having how she would have turned out differently had circumstances changed. That's what I think is important. Okay, let's see here. I like this one. This is Jonathan 13 Lugo. And Jonathan 13 Lugo says, which character did you view in a different light seeing the movie this time around? I still have to say Steve Trevor. Every time I see that character, I'm just so impressed at the way they were able to, handle a male character and not have him overshadow or compete with the female lead, but still stand his own ground. It's one of the most amazing things I've ever seen. It's an incredible balancing act, and I'm so impressed that this movie was able to pull it off. Every time I see it, I'm just blown away. And you're like, why doesn't everybody do this? Oh, I like this. Jared Scoggin. Will they actually call her Wonder Woman in the sequel? No, I don't know. I don't know. She has to have a secret identity, so she can't have everyone say, call me Diana, right? I guess they have to call her something. Although, who would come up with Wonder Woman? I guess it would be like Superman, right? Someone else calls her, and she's like, what'd the press name you? Oh, they named me this. Like in that regard. I guess maybe they will call her Wonder Woman, and maybe it does come. It's weird, though. Like the S, it's like, boy, if you wear a symbol on your chest, get ready for someone to think that's your name, which I guess makes sense. But yeah, I don't know. I think they'll probably have to call her Wonder Woman maybe here and there. But I think they're going to use it really sparingly. I think most people will just call her Diana. Or, hey you, hey lady. Okay, let's see here. We got just a few more questions. This is good. Okay, Christopher Hammerich, I'll take your question. Are you biased about the movie because there is finally a female hero movie? Not at all. I didn't like Elektra. I didn't like Halle Berry's Catwoman. I think, if anything, I'm harder on these movies because I know how important it is to finally get a female hero right. And I'm sick and tired of like the G.I. Jane-ism where these female characters are like, oh, I'm better than guys. That's horrible. I think that's, I recently watched Battle of the Sexes over the weekend, which I think is a moderate film, but it has a really great line in it where Billie Jean King, someone says, so you think you're better than a guy? And Billie Jean King said, I never said that. It's all about just equality and everybody getting their fair shot. And that's what I think diversity and representation in film is supposed to be about, and let the market decide. Let's see what people want to pay to see, and a lot of people certainly paid to see Wonder Woman. So no, I don't think that I'm biased at all. Again, as I said, if anything, I'm tougher on the movie because it's important to me that it get it just right, and I think that's also why I support it so strongly, because it did get it just right, and that's really fabulous. All right, I'll answer 2 more questions. Okay. This is a good one. Okay. Liam Kelly. Grace, lots of love from Ireland. I watch your videos every day. I want to know, that's very nice of you, Liam. I want to know if you could change one thing about Wonder Woman for the sequel. What would it be? Thanks. I guess I would have her be a little bit more in the middle. I think that she's a little too naive, which was appropriate, certainly for her origin story. But then when we see her in the Batman v Superman movie and a little bit in the Justice League promos, she seems a little too angry. I just want to see Wonder Woman kind of like, let's just move forward, Wonder Woman, right? I think that she can't stay this way for too long because the audience will be like, we're over it. And we don't even know why you're angry, come to think of it. You seem to be okay with, I thought she was still upset about what happened to Steve Trevor, but they never really totally clarified that. All right, I'll do 2 more. Stephen M., I see your question. I'll talk about it. Stephen M. says, Grace, what is your opinion on the petition to make Wonder Woman bisexual? I think it's tough. I think that, obviously she has a really strong LGBT fan base, and I think that obviously it makes sense considering where she came from. So, but it's tricky though. I mean, you don't want to alienate audiences or family audiences who, I'm not saying they would have a problem with Wonder Woman being bisexual, but they might have a problem with maybe introducing that to some degree to younger viewers, right? Maybe they don't want younger viewers to think about sexuality at all. However, I think that they've kind of painted themselves into a corner because they had a lot of sexual innuendo in this first movie. Like, as I was saying while I was watching it, I was like, I can't believe they got away with a lot of this stuff and decided to take it here. So what I would do is I wouldn't make Wonder Woman bisexual, but maybe I would address, as I said, I would put maybe an LGBT character in the movie as part of her squad, right? And then maybe I would address how some of the other people in Themyscira are couples and have been together. I think maybe that's something. And also, they kind of did a little bit address it with the conclusion of those books that she was talking about on the boat, right? So I would maybe introduce it into this situation, but I would just be really careful about it. And I don't think that I would. I think I wouldn't just close the door on Wonder Woman's past, but I just wouldn't talk about it. I was like, you know what? She was really focused on her training. She didn't really date. But I think that has to be a little bit a part of her story because that's what the character is about. Not there's only women on Themyscira, but, Wonder Woman helping all who have to fight for have a fight in their lives. And that certainly is the LGBT community. All right. I know that's maybe not the answer you wanted, but, I'm giving you like the business decision. Jason Davidson says, do you think that Wonder Woman's success will open doors to other heroine movies? Please answer. I do think it will. I think that there are going to be some bad ones that will come out, as a result, which is unfortunate. Gabriel Benton asked the same. Gabriel says, how about for women of color? That's a really good question as well. I think that you're going to have some, copycat movies. Hollywood loves a good formula. They love, if they see something, they love to copy it. Some of them aren't going to understand why Wonder Woman worked. Also, it's just hard to do. Even if you do love it and appreciate it, it's just hard to duplicate it because obviously Hollywood would have done it by now. So I'm hoping that while you'll have some copycats that don't work, hopefully we'll have some copycats that will. And that would be really just absolutely wonderful. I mean, I really liked Atomic Blonde. I thought that was great. Obviously, it was nowhere near as successful as Wonder Woman. But hopefully, hopefully we will. And as for women of color, I think that would be great. I would really love to see that. And I hope that someone, puts Vixen or a character like that in a movie. I think that would be really nice. I think that's obviously a next step and is very, very important to do. And I think the obvious way to do it is supporting roles. I felt that they should have played up the Amazons of color a little bit more in this movie. It was unfortunate that they had to take such a back seat, especially when you have Philippus, one of the most famous Amazons in the comic of all time, and how is she not a big part of the movie? All right, I'm having a good time. I'll do one more. Okay. Let's see here. Oh, Jay Woodard points out Black Panther will give us some strong, hot women, I think, also, and also of color, and I think that's going to be great. Let's see how that movie does. That's going to be an important movie as well. Let's see here. One more. Let's see. Keep asking. Oh, I like this one. Devi Montez. Why do you think this movie was so successful? I think it was so successful because a lot of people were waiting for it. It was good. It delivered, which is really important. So that created like a lot of a happy, yay, we weren't let down. And that created buzz. Then I think a curiosity factor kicked in. And also because of being at Wonder Woman and such a strong female superhero movie, really the first of its kind. I know some of you are saying, well, what about Elektra and what about Catwoman? But not the same. And so, it kind of became a movie that you had to see. Like, this is a cultural moment. I should go. I really should try it out. And then also, I think that, and some people have pointed this out, unlike the other DCEU movies, this is the most family-friendly one they've had yet. And that really helps you at the box office. Just ask Marvel. So I think that a lot of people were like, let's take the family. Let's take everybody. Let's go. And so I think that helped it as well. And also, there are some adults who don't go with their family, but are like, you know what? I only like the family-friendly type movies. I'm not into that darker, stuff. I'm not interested. Although unless it becomes something like The Dark Knight, obviously, right? But then that audience goes as well. For a movie to do really well, you have to get Middle America to go. The coasts are very big movie-going cities just in general. But if you really want your movie to make a lot of money, you got to move the needle on Middle America. And I think that Wonder Woman moved the needle. in a big way. Not as big as it could have. I think it had more action, and I hope that they fix that for the sequel. And it certainly heard it overseas. But that's why I think Wonder Woman was so successful. All right, that's the live Q&A. So many of you tuned in. I had such a nice time talking about Wonder Woman with you. Thank you so much, and I had fun watching it with you as well. This is going to go evergreen and stay up here, so you can continue to comment there down below. And as always, if you have a question, you can find me on Twitter. I'm pretty good at answering questions. You can see my Twitter handle there, at Grace Randolph on Twitter. All right, fun talking to you. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Bye.